What up, Fifth Downers? This is Johnny Sloak. You're listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast. I got my partner in crime, K-Mill.
What up, what up?
Yeah. We're doing our Week 12 Waiver Wire show. Yeah, what a fucking week for injuries, huh?
What a nightmare week just in general, man. I thought my best built fantasy team was the best built, and it fucking ended up underperforming this week, which probably happened to a lot of you guys, too. A lot of big names underperforming.
It happens. Before we jump into things, I just want to let you guys know that you can catch our show on iTunes. We are also on Blog Talk Radio, Breaker. We are in all the above. So let's get into things a little bit. We've got some news and notes that we want to kind of power through. We're not going to spend too much time on it. The Packers, they want to get Christine Michael ready for Week 12.
Yeah, I would anticipate that they would because, their running games are stale. I mean, James Starks, the only time that, he can do anything is if he's wide the fuck open and nobody is around him. Other than that, he sucks. So
he did score a touchdown.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. That's what I was referencing. He scored that touchdown, and it was just a breakdown in defensive coverage.
I think Michael isn't really going to cut into his time too much. I think it's going to cut into Ty Montgomery's playing time, who's seen his playing time dip quite a bit these past couple of weeks. I
would say he's droppable in a lot of formats, and not to mention, Christine Michael. I think it's just going to be a committee. Avoid it.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. You hear that AP might be able to return for Week 15 or 16. I wouldn't look too much into it.
I did too, but same here. I wouldn't look too much into it. Look, people, he was ineffective when he was playing this year, even before he got injured. I'm not really expecting a whole lot with this. He might be worth the stash if you have an IR spot on your team, though.
And then speaking of another guy that might be able to return, Amir Abdullah could resume practice soon.
I did hear that too, and I was very surprised at that because all reports I was hearing was he's done for the season. But who knows? He's a guy that, he was putting up solid RB2 numbers before he went down. So he's a guy, again, if you have an IR spot. Other than that, I wouldn't even touch it.
Indianapolis' offense finally looked like they are getting back on track, and what do you know? Andrew Luck is in concussion protocol. It does not appear like he'll be able to get ready in time for that Thursday matchup on Thanksgiving. That is a huge blow to their team when they're really going to need him against Pittsburgh. So that's devastating.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, man. And these guys invest in an offensive line. They're not giving Andrew Luck enough protection. He's always hurried. This dude's always running for his life. I mean, come on, help him out. And the other thing too, just the other thing I want to touch on briefly is, Pittsburgh, man, stream everybody. Nearly everybody, because they are going to feast on a depleted Colts defense, and it's going to be a very one-sided contest, in my opinion.
Cody Kessler, Hugh Jackson kind of hinted that he could be done for the season. He suffered his second concussion within the month, and it looks like they're going to give Josh McCown a go-around since it doesn't look like RG3 is quite ready yet.
Well, if you watched McCown on this weekend against Pittsburgh, I mean, he didn't look too good either. He freaking fumbled in the end zone. Yeah, he was no good. And I actually did the hand motion with it. No good.
No pun intended for the kickers.
Yeah, no pun intended. What a Welsh. Anyhow, yeah, he fumbled in the end zone. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. And that was just terrible, awareness on his part. So, no.
That was a really good play. He really set him up, for Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Another guy that could be done for the year is Jay Cutler. I mean, they don't really have a whole lot of options behind him. It sounds like they're going to give Matt Barkley a go-around.
Sorry, I can't. Yeah. You know what? The Bears team, start nobody. Zach Miller's out too. Start nobody.
Another couple of people that are out for the year. Well, actually, I guess it kind of makes Cincinnati's out for the year because they've lost A.J. Green, they lost Gio Bernard for the season with the ACL tear. Although I was hearing some reports that A.J. Green's hamstring tear isn't as what they thought it was. It's more of a small tear, and he might be able to return for like week 16, week 17. But
yeah,
it sounds like his fantasy season's done though.
Yeah, it sure as hell sounds like that. We're talking maybe your last week of the playoffs. If you're in the championship.
And they're really not going to make the playoffs this year. They might as well just sit them down for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it would be a smart move by Cincinnati. Sit down your big players. And A.J. Green's still got youth on his side. I believe he's only 28. I mean, he's still very young. He's got plenty of years left in it, good football left in him. He's your premier franchise player. Sit him down. And if I was a fantasy owner for A.J. Green, I would borderline consider dropping him at this point. He's really not worth keeping on your bench.
I don't know how fantasy relevant this is, but maybe it is a little bit. Ryan Fitzpatrick will start week 12. I think that could boost Brandon Marshall up a little bit, but even so, Fitzpatrick has been pretty bad this year too.
Yeah, I think the only reason that he boosts Marshall's value is just because of the fact that he will funnel him the ball no matter what. Triple coverage, quadruple coverage, it doesn't fucking matter. He's going to throw it there, and if he throws a pick, he throws a pick, but he's damn well going to throw it to Marshall.
For the past month, I've been yelling at people, pick up Thomas Rawls, pick up Thomas Rawls, pick up Thomas Rawls, and now it's finally going to come to light. It looks like C.J. Prosise will be done for the rest of the regular season with a scapula injury. That sucks because it looked like he was going to be like that waiver wire darling,
Yeah, you know what? I think that the Seahawks are the ones getting the most burn on this because they could have had Christine Michael and Thomas Rawls, but they were like, oh, we're good with Prosise and Rawls. Drop Christine Michael. And now they're like, shit, we do need
I bet they're missing them now.
Yeah, I bet they're missing them now. So, you know what? It's going to be funny, too, because, Thomas Rawls, so far in his very young career, has been very injury-prone. I'm just saying, if he goes down, the Seahawks are going to be very sorry they cut Christine Michael.
Robert Wood has a knee sprain. He was seen in crutches. It does appear like he's going to miss some time.
Yeah. It's just it really opens up that spot for Sammy Watkins when he does get back, and especially with the play of Tyrod Taylor really taking shape. I mean, he looks great. He looks fantastic.
A teammate of Sammy's came out and said that he could return as soon as next week. He actually got
I heard
a CT scan yesterday. We don't know the results yet, but he got a scan yesterday of his foot. Keep in mind, he has to be medically cleared by the team's doctors in order to return. So.
And also keep in mind that he didn't need that second surgery, so he was just recovering from his foot problems earlier in the season. It was just a pain tolerant type of thing. So as long as the team doctors say he's good, he will play.
But he does have that same kind of injury that Dez was dealing with, that Julio is dealing with, and yeah, they came back from it, but they weren't necessarily effective when they came back. So also keep that in mind too. If you're thinking about playing them in the playoffs, your fantasy football playoffs, I would double think that a little bit.
Yeah, and I just want to add this one last thing in there too, guys. Sammy Watkins is more so a boomer bust type player nowadays, and when he booms, he fucking booms. But when he busts, it's like a goose egg. So keep that in mind. I would not start him until I've at least seen him in one game.
Wouldn't be a bad replacement for someone who lost A.J. Green, though.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true.
Yeah, I know you touched on it a little bit. Zach Miller hurt his foot. It appears to be the same foot that he had broken earlier in his career. He does look like he is done for the year as well. So he's droppable. Find someone else.
Yeah, you know what? Very unfortunate because Jay Cutler loves to target Zach Miller. So when Jay Cutler's in there, he's always targeting Zach Miller. So and
he's having a good game too.
These last couple of weeks, yeah, he's been having fantastic games and returning tight end one value, and now that's all shot. So back to the drawing board for you Zach Miller owners.
And what the fuck's going on with Philadelphia's backfield? Darren Sproles left with a rib injury. Ryan Matthews has an MCL sprain. Like, it looks like there's going to have to be like someone like Smallwood to take over the role for the short time being,
Yeah, it looks like that, but here's my thing, too. Now, the Eagles play on Monday night, so this is going to be very confusing because if you do end up, and we're going to talk about this, if you do end up picking up Smallwood. You got the fact of, you've got a whole week for Sproles and Matthews to recover, so there's a chance Smallwood doesn't even play. However, he's probably the best running back I have this week.
You got to think he's got to get some time, even if Sproles was to return. You got to think he's going to get some playing time.
Yeah, you would have to anticipate.
LeSean McCoy dislocates his thumb. He was getting a procedure done today. It looks like he should be able to suit up, but I will say can tread like water. He might have some ball security issues. He might even lose a lot of work to Gillisley, because he looked like he was doing pretty good in his absence.
Yeah, Gillisley, in the one time that he did take over for McCoy, he did actually return RB2 value, and I would look for that to continue if LeSean McCoy was to miss extended time. And not to mention too, there's way worse bench stashes to have. If you can stash a guy like that and then say, Shady's always banged up, so if he's going down and you got to plug somebody in. I mean, he's a guy that could really, be that championship winner for you. I'm just saying, those are smart ads that you could do.
Yeah, he's one of the top handcuffs in the league. It's a run-heavy offense. All this bad news that we've been dishing out today, there is one piece of good news. Tevin Coleman has resumed practice today.
My boy Tevin.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have them back.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, let's jump into the thick of things, shall we? We'll do I want to do plug and play for quarterbacks. Pick some streamers. There's a couple I like.
All right.
Probably one of my favorite streams of the week for quarterback. It doesn't come to any surprise because of how bad Green Bay has been. Carson Wentz is next up on the slate. Green Bay has been really bad lately. They've given up 1,239 yards over the past 4 games, giving up 30-plus points in each matchup. I kind of like this matchup, but, it could be they very well could go to a more conservative route, kind of like, what they did against Atlanta. But with all those running backs banged up, they might have to air the ball out.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with that. I actually really don't have anything to add. You said it perfectly.
So, K-Mill, is there any quarterbacks that you have your eyeball on?
Well, I think Ryan Tannehill has a pretty good matchup this week, and I think that he could definitely return RB2 value. He's silently been pretty good lately because, Miami hasn't been expecting too much of him. Well, he hasn't been too bad. What I'm saying is he hasn't been a fucking complete dumpster fire like he was earlier in the year. I mean, he's returning like quarterback 2 numbers usually. And
Week 10 was probably his best game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my point is that, he's got Jay Ajayi who's carrying the load. He's the early down workhorse. And then Tannehill is only expected to make throws here and there. And he's a guy, I don't see a high ceiling for him, but I also see a decently high floor for him this week against San Francisco.
Yeah, he had a really good game Week 10. He kind of struggled a little bit last week, but, it was really bad weather. San Francisco has given up 1,248 yards the past 4 games to 11 touchdowns. So there's definitely some value to be there for Tannehill if you're trying to stream a quarterback for Week 12. One other guy I want to mention, he's not as high on the streaming side, but Sam Bradford goes against Detroit. He plays on the road, though. He did have, I believe, 273 yards on a touchdown last time they played. Don't like him as much on the road, though. So. Yeah,
absolutely. I have another guy just while we're on quarterbacks too. Colin Kaepernick. He's also got a pretty good matchup against the Dolphins too, and he's actually shown he's actually been very productive the last couple of weeks, and I think that this is a good matchup for him.
Yeah, the rushing value has been boosting him up, and he looks a little bit more accurate as of late too.
Yeah, I think he's starting to finally. I think his shoulder looks nearly, it's getting there as far as healing goes, and I think that he's doing a lot better as he gets healthier.
All right, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question.
All right.
Would you ever, in your wildest dreams, play Jared Goff? He plays New Orleans.
I didn't like what I saw from him last week, so, and that was against the Dolphins, so I'm going to say no.
Yeah, he looked like he got a nice welcome to the NFL by Cameron Wake. He got rocked.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I look for us to continue too, because he just looks like that really skinny kid in high school. That just I don't know. He just doesn't look like fully developed. He doesn't look like a football player to me. He looks just like a skinny little punk.
I felt bad for him. He looked like a lost puppy out there.
How can you feel bad for a guy that got drafted number 1 overall, took all that money, and now he's about to rob the franchise, and he's going to put LA in the dark ages for years?
All right, when you put it that way, you bring up a good point. Other quarterbacks out there that you're not picking up, if we had to play hire or fire, they would definitely be fired. Alex Smith going on the road against Denver, you're not picking him up. Flacco's a piece of shit.
Fired.
Trevor Siemian plays Kansas City, fired.
Fired. So fired.
Another one is Brock Coxswaller.
No, I have something to say about Coxswaller. He's fired for the rest of the year. Just don't even think about it. Don't even touch him. Just don't even think about it. If you think about it, just like slap your hand like you're about to grab a cookie, but you don't want to, affect your waistline. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, let's go over to running backs. Let's play a little bit of hired or fired with the running backs. Yeah?
All right. Yeah.
T.J. Yeldon, left with an ankle injury. He's over 50% owned, but would you think about dropping him?
I would definitely have to say I'm going to have to fire him. It hasn't been getting it done, and it looks like Ivory is really, he's had 2 out of his last 3 games have been 100-yard or more rushing games. So I think that it's safe to say that this is Ivory's backfield.
We touched on him a little bit earlier. Ty Montgomery, his carries are going down. He doesn't seem like he's as involved in the offense. He did have a touchdown taken away because of a holding call last week, but he 7 touches
fired.
on the game.
Yeah,
Fired.
I say
Okay.
fired. He's going in the wrong direction like we just talked about. I don't need to hit it too hard. You got James Starks there who's ineffective, and you got Christine Michael. It's just a conundrum. They're going to put him back to the depth player at receiver.
Tim Hightower, I believe he's like 52% owned. Ingram left with a concussion. Just based off that alone, I would have to say hired.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, and also I'd say hired as well with Hightower. But he continues to produce. I mean, Hightower, put in a good ticket last week. I know this was with injury, but Sean Payton's been kind of mixing things up. He's been, throwing Hightower in there with Ingram, and at the very least, he's returning RB3 value. So I say that he's a nice flex play, if not an RB2, if, say, Ingram can't go.
Yeah, at this point in the year, if you can find yourself an RB3, that's good.
I'll say.
All right. This next one, I want you to say with your best Donald Trump voice, okay?
All right.
Matt Jones.
Matt Jones, you're fired.
All right, let's go further down the list. Some guys that are owned in less than 50% of leagues. You got Matt Asiata. He plays Detroit next week. Do you think he could be a plug-and-play?
I could definitely see it, but I wouldn't play him unless I was desperate. Unless you're extremely desperate, don't do it.
He's a desperation flex play at this point because he's playing Detroit. What you're banking on is a goal line touchdown.
Exactly. He has to vulture a touchdown to even come close to what you want him for.
And same thing goes for McKinnon. Yeah, he's playing Detroit. He's 38% owned in Yahoo leagues, but, you're banking on a touchdown because, the yards per carry is just not there.
No, it is not. Yeah, that backfield just, it scares me. No, desperation only.
All right. Derrick Henry did not receive a single carry this past week. Does that concern you? Or is it more than a factored off of the fact that they are down 21-0?
I think he was phased out by gameplay, but I also think it just has to do with it. He's kind of a handcuff at this point, and also, they've been really airing out the offense. I'm not looking too much into it. Honestly, if you have Derrick Henry on your team, you would have him just on the off chance that he ends up getting RB1 type work.
Chris Ivory is 48% owned. Yeldon might miss some time. Who knows? You say add? I mean, I think he could be a flex play, but it's just that offensive line isn't promising.
Trust me, I don't trust him as an RB2, but I definitely look for him to return RB3 or bust. Who knows?
All right. Bilal Powell, I know they're off a bye week, so he's going to be a little bit less owned. He's 41% owned right now. Does he have do you have room for him on your roster?
Absolutely, yes, because even though he is a handcuff at his best, at his worst, he is also proven to be a nice plug-and-play and a desperation flex play that actually returns value some weeks. So, because some weeks he gets heavily utilized and he ends up filtering a touchdown or two.
Yeah, see, my issue with him is I never feel comfortable playing him, he's going to get those weeks where he's going to return value, but you don't know when it's going to be.
And that's my point, yeah. Don't start him just to start him and be like, I think he's going to have a good week. Just start him if you absolutely have to. He should be a bench stash, though, in case Forte gets hurt, because then he's an every week RB2.
Jeremy Langford vultured a goal line touchdown. I think that's pretty much all he's going to be worth at this point. Kenneth Dixon, are we finally off Kenneth Dixon's train?
I would say no. I personally, in a deep league, there's a lot, worse players to own. I think that he's definitely worth a bench stash still. I would hold on to him for one more week. This is still a never-changing backfield. I would give him another week to see if he carves out a role. Because running backs this time of year are so hard to come by.
Where I'm at with him at this point is I'm not owning him unless I have Terrence West.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that
it just hasn't really looked that good when he has played. Like every now and then he makes some nice plays, but if this is going to happen, I feel like it would happen by now.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like yes, you can drop him. If there's other players out there say like Chris Ivory, I would add Chris Ivory and drop him. But if it's pretty bare on your waiver wire and you're in a deeper league, just hold on to him.
All right. I know he touched on Gillislee. We both agree that he's an excellent ad. It doesn't look like Paul Perkins is going to get that share of the workload that we wanted him to get. Rashad Jennings is really turning it on again, kind of like last year. So I don't know. I don't really feel like he's worth an ad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I would rather drop Paul. I would definitely drop Perkins before I dropped Dixon. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we touched on Abdullah. We touched a little bit on Smallwood. Another guy that actually looks like he could probably end up getting the majority of the interior rushes for Detroit is Dwayne Washington. He had 13 carries, but the problem is he only had 6 yards.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the problem. I think the only running back in Detroit worth owning right now is Theo Riddick. Other than that, I would just really not look too much into it.
Is there any running backs that we missed that you want to go over before we jump over to the wide receiver position?
I would just like to say any kind of a start running back handcuff is greatly appreciated. Obviously, we talked about Bilal Powell. I think Kenneth Dixon is still worth rostering on your bench, especially if it's deep bench, even better. But yeah, if you have a running back, this like I said this year, I just want to get on my soapbox for 1 second. Start running backs are so hard to come by, and you want those like lottery tickets. So if you have room on your bench, I am a firm believer in keep those guys on your bench, and then if they get a roll, then boom.
All right. Now going over to the wide receiver position. We just watched him on TV. Will Fuller looked like he was sharing some snaps with Braxton Miller today. Granted, he's probably not 100% healthy. How do you feel about that?
Granted, I really don't want to add either of them because of the quarterback situation, I really just doesn't make either one of them appealing to me.
Bingo. Another guy that I do not feel like is worth the ad is Michael Floyd. He got benched actually again. Bruce Arians said it's because he had the flu, but come on, we've seen him run short on that route and then end up leading to an interception. We all seen it. Don't play like he had the flu. Maybe he did, but he wasn't on the injury report.
Yeah, speaking of which, just real quick, Bruce Arians had a heart attack too, so the Cardinals are getting so many injuries, even their coach is injured. So, I don't know. Yeah, don't add Floyd.
You know, we touched on him a little bit. Sammy Watkins, 42% owned. I've been stashing him on my bench for since week 4 or 5 because we have an IR spot. But I think it's time.
Yeah, if you are a playoff team, I think he's a great add, especially if you were, say, a team that lost AJ Green. He's a great add, and especially if you have the IR spot, he's a must add if you have an IR spot available.
Tyreek Hill, after seeing some great production the past couple of weeks, last week he was 3rd on the team in targets behind Kelsey and Chris Conley even. I think he had 4 catches off 5 targets, but he plays Denver next week, so you're not picking him up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he is averaging 7-8 targets a game, but that's without Jerry Maclin.
Yeah, he actually had 13 in week 10, but I kind of touched on it on some previous shows. That's not gonna happen every week, even if Macklin's out, because they got Travis Kelce over there, who actually had a really great game, by the way.
Yeah, he did. And the other thing too to keep in mind is he's playing the Broncos next week, so he's definitely don't even think about starting him next week.
Pierre Garçon, he had 116 yards and a touchdown, and they played Dallas next week. Dallas's secondary is a little bit banged up, but I think there's definitely some better options out there than Pierre Garçon.
Yeah.
So you will definitely be on the wide receiver 3 on the lower end.
Sorry, I sneezed. Holy shit. I don't know why, dude. I think allergies are getting me. Anyways, yeah, as far as the Pierre Garçon goes, I'm not really sold on him. I think that was more of an outlier performance. It's one of those waiver wire
he had that 70-yard touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. That's where all the value came from. It's like, ooh, everybody's looking at the points, but in reality, it's just, it's not going to happen every week.
Eli Rogers had a couple of nice performances, followed up by a dud this past week against Cleveland, probably a big letdown. But keep in mind, it was windy. It was kind of trying to snow out there. So, I mean, there's better games available in the coming future, especially next week. He gets to play Indianapolis. So,
plus the Browns were being easily handled. They didn't really need production from him. Le'Veon Bell did all the work.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the way I was looking at it is if you can't stop the run, why would I throw? I'm just going to keep running.
Yeah, exactly. The game flow favored Le'Veon Bell from before the pregame even started.
Tajay Sharp, he caught 4 of 7 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown. A lot of that came off that nice deep pass. But, he's starting to pick up his play the past couple of weeks. 12% owned.
Yeah, the coach called him out, said he had a lot to learn. He was still pretty immature. Everybody was jumping at him at the start of the season, and now he's finally jumping into that role, and I kind of like where he's going with it.
Yeah. With A.J. Green going out, who do you like more from the wide receiver standpoint, not counting Tyler Eifert? You got LaFell, and you got Boyd.
Tyler Boyd?
I'm sorry, Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, I gave this one a lot of thought, too, because people were asking me about it. I got a couple of questions on a couple different places. Now, LaFell's just not doing it for me. He just drops balls, and
he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, he looks like a piece of shit. Exactly. Tyler Boyd, he actually picked up really well in the absence of AJ Green. So and he got 57 yards, 54 yards in the score. So there might be something there. And you got to think too, Andy Dalton throws the ball a lot. He's going to have to throw to somebody else besides Eifert.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd looked like his favorite target. He had 8 targets. He caught 6 of them for 54 yards. He even scored a touchdown. So, maybe that could be worth a speculative ad, maybe as your wide receiver 5. Maybe he can turn into something.
To be honest, I wouldn't add him with a waiver claim. I would just wait and see if he goes unclaimed in the waiver period and then add him.
All right. Another kind of interesting ad, he's lowly owned, but he's kind of like the second receiver on his team now, as our Marquise Lee for the Jaguars has 22 targets in the past week.
What about Alan Hearns?
Yeah, he's a ghost.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
know we both touched on it more this season. We're like, yeah, we can see some regression from this offense. We can see Allen Robinson having a little bit of a down year. But I know I definitely said I think the one that's going to be hurt the most is Allen Hurns, and you see it. Allen Hurns hasn't done anything all year.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I don't think either of us foresaw the regression of this Jags team. I thought we definitely saw some regression coming. It was like there's no way that Jacksonville.
I think a lot of people did.
There's no way that they could have sustained that production, and this year's building proof. But I didn't think it was going to be this bad.
All right. Going over to is there any other receivers you want to talk about?
I'm okay.
All right. Going over to the tight end position. He's not as available as he was past couple of weeks, but Zachary Ertz, 57% owned. He has 26 targets in the past 3 weeks with 20 catches, and he actually scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I like Zach Ertz. He's been more and more utilized, but I said this a couple weeks ago, and I really do stand by it, man. I'm so just done with Zach Ertz. I do own him in a couple of leagues, but I don't feel like I'm there comfortable enough to start him. That's just how I feel with him.
I mean, obviously he's on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues for a reason, but you really do gotta like the production that he's starting to put up recently.
I know, and I know my luck with Ertz is the minute I put him in, I'm going to get a fucking goose egg from him.
Yeah, that's how it always happens. Like there's a lot of people that dropped Minnesota's defense and they had an excellent week.
Yeah.
CJ Fedorowicz, my boy, he's playing right now. The game's probably over by now, but he actually had a pretty decent game from what I can tell. I think he had like 8 or 9 points on my team. He's widely available. He's owned in 22% of leagues. If you're in a pinch, you can plug him in. But the question I have for you is, how do you feel about Jared Cook? 12% owned. He had 6 catches, 105 yards, for a touchdown against Washington.
Yeah, I got some questions about this too. Jared Cook, man, what can I say? He was a guy that, preseason I was like, ooh, maybe he could do something in Green Bay. But, he's just his old self that he was in L.A. He was injury prone, and he just didn't live up to his potential, and I think it's going to continue. I mean, yeah, the stat line looked really nice this week, but, for me personally, my personal opinion on him is, he's just not worth it to me.
Yeah, I was talking to the Diesel doctor, and his opinion was, if you pick him up, you're chasing points at this point. Because he goes, you're gonna pick him up, and he's gonna get you like 2 catches for 10 yards.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that opinion by the Diesel doctor. He's not worth it to me. You're chasing points at this point. He couldn't have put it better.
Ladarius Green still looks like he's getting acclimated to the offense, so he's not worth the ad. But, one of my plug-and-plays for tight end I think is a pretty interesting streaming option is Kendrick from St. Louis. I know week 10 he didn't have any yards receiving. He actually had 4 catches for 7 targets this past week. That's pretty much what he's been getting for pretty much the year. He doesn't really have a lot of upside, but he does get a very, very nice matchup against New Orleans. The question is, can Jared Goff get him the ball?
And that's why I'm not adding him. Just because of that. You just have to say 2 words, Jared Goff, and I don't want to touch him. I would have to be extremely desperate to start Kendricks. I think there's actually guys that are, less owned than Kendricks that actually I like better. One of which
I'm about to name one.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll let you go first.
I was going to say Advanced Refrigeration, a.k.a. McDonald.
He did score.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, the last 2 games, he's had 11 catches for 204 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that tells you something. And he's averaging nearly 20 yards per catch. I mean, that's not sustainable, but at the same point, he has been really productive with Colin Kaepernick at the helm. So that's not to be ignored. And he also did have value when Blaine Gabbert was the starter, too. So just to, let you know, he's a guy that I would rather start than a lot of guys to name.
Well, I'm glad that you named him because another guy that I like that's even less owned, he's only owned in 2% of Yahoo leagues, is, Will Tye. He's been picking up his play lately. He's got 20 targets over the past 3 weeks. And these next 4 weeks he has an excellent schedule. Next week he plays Cleveland. The week after that he plays Pittsburgh. Then he plays Dallas. And then he plays Detroit. So, I mean, if you're like in a pinch or maybe you didn't draft a tight end, you've been streaming all year, he's going to be my streaming option for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, what's even better for him is that Larry Donnell, year long they were going back and forth, who is the guy, and they were both basically, stealing value from each other. And now that Donnell was a healthy scratch this weekend, this is great for Will Tye. I think that he's really going to step into his own. And I liked him last year when, he was able to be that primary tight end. He had a nice connection with Eli Manning. He was getting a touchdown more often than not, usually in most games.
All right. Before we end our show, let's who is some of your heroes and zeros of the week for quarterback?
Well, for quarterback, well, I think we got to go with the obvious candidate here, Tom Brady. He was just absolutely fantastic. I can't say enough about him. He's been on a fucking warpath this entire year. I think it's to get back to Goodell for suspending him for 4 games, but man, he looks good.
You didn't like Kirk Cousins? 21 of 30 for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Hold on, I was going to say Kirk, but you have to say something before you say anything about Kirk Cousins. Do you like that? Do you like that? Do you like that? I love Kirk.
You know what impressed me was his arm strength in that wind when he was throwing those bombs against Green Bay. He has 6 straight games of 250 yards or more.
I only have one gripe about him. Fucking 3 touchdown passes. You don't throw a damn one to Jordan Reed. What the fuck? I'm just kidding. I really loved what I saw about Kirk. And, honestly, ever since last year, a lot of people were writing him off. It was a fluke, this and that. I'm still a believer. I was a believer at the end of last year. I was really rooting for the Redskins in the playoffs. And you know what? I am on the Kirk Cousins bandwagon. So, maybe it comes back to burn me in 2 or 3 seasons, but I'm on the Cousins bandwagon.
Hey, who is your zero at quarterback? I have one. My zero for quarterback this week was Andy Dalton. That whole offense looked very bad against the Buffalo Bills. They had 12 points. Yep. That doesn't help either. But even before the injuries, their offense just looked stagnant. Even last week against the Giants.
Yeah. My zero of the week at quarterback was your boy Matthew Stafford. He fucking burnt me in one league, and he looked absolutely horrible. He looked lost. He wasn't getting a whole lot of help though either, and he has an even worse matchup coming up this week against Minnesota.
I think between Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, I think they only had 3 receptions.
Yeah, I know it was bad. The only guy that really produced in that offense this week was Ebron, and really other than that, it was just a shit show. Well,
really, Ebron didn't even do that well. He had that one long reception, and then he was lucky to get an end in the round for a touchdown.
That is true. But what I'm saying is, fantasy-wise, those were the only 2 that really turned into a good week. Only one that really turned into a good week, him and Theo Riddick.
All right. I'm going to be a little bit biased for my hero for running back, only because he's been doing very well for me as of late. Le'Veon Bell, he had 201 all-purpose yards against the Cleveland Browns. He also scored a rushing touchdown, which gives him 3 touchdowns the past 2 weeks after not scoring a single one since coming back off the suspension. So it's really nice to see that he's finally starting to heat up. And he gets a mouth-watering matchup against Indianapolis next week.
Man, you motherfucker! You had to take. You had an obvious candidate. And I would have to say the same. I would totally agree with you. But just for the sake of being a little different, another hero I have this week for running back is David Johnson. We go back and forth with these 2 guys a lot. He was the only bright spot of this Arizona team, and I think he will continue to be so for the rest of the season. Carson Palmer looks lost. The receiving core looks lost. But David Johnson, man, he just continues to shine.
He is very, very impressive. And I'm sorry, I can't go on without saying that I can't leave him out because he had a really good week, too, is Rob Zombie Kelly. I know he terrorized a lot of opponents this week. 137 yards with 3 big touchdowns. Green Bay's the Fakers.
Yeah, man, they are a bunch of pretenders, like the Foo Fighters said one time. And you know what though, man? Rob Kelly, man, I can't say enough good things about that kid. He looks like a guy that I was a little hesitant to name him, at some points, but I'm on the Kelly train. I'm on the Redskins train. I am like riding their dick right now.
Who's a running back that really disappointed you this week?
Well, this one I kind of had a hard time with, but I'm going to go with C.J. Prosise. I think everybody was expecting him to rope a lasso around the moon and bring it to you, and he fails to really deliver. I know he got injured before everybody starts jumping on me, but I just I really he looked impressive during the first quarter, but then he kind of fell off. I think it was partly because of game flow.
Well, he had that 72-yard touchdown run, and after that, he really didn't do a whole lot else. I think the injury happened sometime after that. It happened because he went to the locker room before halftime. So. Yeah,
that is true. I mean, and it is injury does have something to do with it, but I was just saying.
My zero is he's not a zero necessarily because he had a terrible week. But only because I was expecting more out of him was Jonathan Stewart. He had 18 carries for 31 yards, salvages his day with a touchdown run, which I was actually surprised that he even got because the first time they gave it to him, he got stuffed, and they actually went back to him. So that was nice to see. I was just expecting him to do a lot better than what he did.
Yeah. I also have a bonus zero of the week. Jia Jai, who's been so effective lately. I know he did face a tough LA defense. But 16 attempts for 77 yards and no touchdowns. I mean, and there were times where he kind of just looked a little lost, and he made some bad plays. He took too long to catch the ball, or he bobbled a catch, and he ended up costing his team in some key places.
All right, wide receiver. Who is your hero of the week? Or this could be wide receiver or tight end. Who is your hero?
Oh. Well, I want to say it because we're not going to have a chance to later in the year. I'm going to say Zach Miller. Sorry you're hurt, but you also returned in a really good week. But in all honesty, I would have to say Travis Kelce. I mean, he looked phenomenal.
He did.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Travis Kelce. I'm really pissed that I traded him in some leagues.
My hero of the week, he didn't score a touchdown, but because of how well he's been playing for the past, 7 weeks, Rashard Matthews, he had 9 catches for 122 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but that's been a rarity lately.
Yeah, man, I'll say.
All right, my zero of the week for receivers is, well, we already mentioned him, Marvin Jones. He disappears. He's done disappearing for the whole second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say, just strictly because of, what you expect from him on a week-to-week basis, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, guys, Antonio Brown, you let me down, buddy. You let me down. He was playing one of the worst passing defenses in the league against Cleveland, and I know a lot of this is game flow based, so don't get on me too much. But for fantasy teams, he really failed to put up a good stat line. But we all know that was game flow based.
Yeah, it had a lot to do with the weather, which is going to play a big part going forward in this fantasy football season. It's getting later in the year. Weather's not always going to be good, so you really got to pay attention to that. Pay attention to your local weather stations.
Another bonus one that I have real quick is just Cameron Meredith. I was expecting a lot from him. I know that you specifically, Johnny, said to temper expectations, and you actually ended up being right on this one. But Cameron Meredith, man, he really didn't, produce this weekend. He was averaging about 4 or 5 fantasy points per league, and he just didn't get those wide receiver 3 numbers that we were hoping for. But the thing is, though, with the injury to Zach Miller, he can only go up from here.
You want to know an interesting stat line about these Chicago receivers is, who had just as many targets as Cameron Meredith?
Oh, Eddie Royal?
Not Eddie Royal. Marquise Wilson had 4 targets as well. He only caught 1 of them as opposed to Meredith catching 3 of them. But he caught 1 nice one. I think it was for 15, 20 yards. If you're in a deeper league, like a 16 to 20 man league, that might be worth a speculative ad.
Yeah, good choice.
All right. Before we go, with the gun to your head, pick a defense to stream this week.
Oh, shit. Caught me off guard, man.
I know, that's the point.
Yeah. I'm going to say, as far as streaming goes, I think I'll probably choose Pittsburgh. Andrew Luck is most likely going to be out this week on Thursday, and I think that Pittsburgh will be a very viable option with I don't even know who the fuck's his backup. Tolzien, yeah,
it's a good option. They're 47% owned in Yahoo Leagues. Good choice. The one I'm going to go with is Buffalo. They're a little bit. They're not as widely available. They're 56% owned. They play Jacksonville, who turns the ball over like crazy.
That is a good point too. Yeah, teams that turn the ball over.
Some other good options you can have out there. Tennessee, 16% owned. They are on the road though, but they're playing against Chicago, who probably won't be with Jay Cutler, so that's a good option. And Detroit is playing Minnesota, so that's also an option.
That is an option.
All right, that pretty much covers everything that we wanted to cover today. Do you have any last words, K-Mill?
No.
Safe sex is great sex.
Yeah, you know what? I think I broke that one out, so I'm going to have to figure out a new one.
All right. I know we've been slacking a little bit with our shows lately, but we're going to have a couple of special episodes this week. Tomorrow we're going to bring Rico Suave on, and I want to do a special episode with him about it's going to be called The Late Season Blues. It'll be like a lot about league management and what to do about like people who just don't care about their football team anymore, or people that say, "Oh, my team sucks, I want my money back," shit like that. Where I was like, "This is how you're going to handle it." So that'll be something to look forward to. And then obviously we're going to have our matchup show later on this week. Look forward to that one.
Yeah, man. We got to do it early, too, because of the Thanksgiving games.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't want to be doing a show on Thanksgiving because I want to be drunk that entire day, stuff my face full of turkey, not chicken.
Yeah, I agree. I will be doing the same thing. I'm going to be working on getting really drunk and consuming a lot of food and alcohol.
All right. So that'll pretty much do it for today's show. You can catch us on iTunes. Leave us a rate and review. If you have any questions concerning your fantasy football team, you can follow us on Twitter at the Fifth Down FF. We are also on Breaker. We're on the Blog Talk Radio. Woo! Well, yeah, that'll do it. Have a good one, Fifth Downers.
Peace.